You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P. Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the USA wheelchair basketball player Joshua Turek. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here with you.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into the sport of wheelchair basketball?
Yeah, I was exposed to wheelchair basketball when I was 12 years old. I ended up going to a basketball camp. Well, it was an adaptive sports camp at Omaha, Nebraska, and it was for children that were disabled, and they exposed us to almost all adaptive sports from track and field to tennis, and basketball was one of those that we got exposed to. And from the very first moment that I got out there and competed, I had always played basketball just with family and friends and against able-bodied. But the moment that I got in that chair and started shooting and playing against other members of the disabled population and my peers, I immediately fell in love with it.
Of course, what was that feeling like preparing for the Team USA and making that team for the first time?
It was long and it was difficult. My journey went from playing at a junior level just in high school for the Nebraska Red Dogs, and then I was recruited to play at Southwest Minnesota State University and played pretty well there. I scored 4,000 points in my college career, set records like 63 points in a game. Um, but even then, even with doing that well in college, I was still cut from my first two national team tryouts. I was never the biggest. I was never the strongest. I had to put on about 35 pounds of muscle to be able to compete with the sport. And then before I actually ended up making my first national team, I ended up going and playing over in Europe and playing professionally for an Italian team, which I think was absolutely necessary for me to be able to find step on the international stage. And so when I finally was announced to my very first team in 2004, it wasn't the fulfillment of my ultimate goal, because my ultimate goal was to win a gold medal, but a large part of that was just to I never cared if I ever played professional wheelchair basketball because I didn't know that such thing existed, but the goal was to finally be able to wear USA across my chest. So I was incredibly honored and proud to be basically able to represent the USA and to be amongst what is the 12 best players in the entire country. That's a huge honor.
Of course, what was that transition like from going from playing college wheelchair basketball to representing the national team?
Um, it's a big difference in terms of the level of skill and level of play. It's like anything in normal able-bodied athletics. You see that transition. So you might be a great high school player, but your skill set doesn't transfer over to that. Doesn't guarantee you to be a great college player. And then you see a lot of college basketball players, and they're very good at the collegiate level, but that you never see them be successful at like an NBA level. And then internationally is even one level above that. You're only taking the very best of even your professional players and putting them into international competition. So internationally, you think about that, you're only taking the very best 12 players. So think about our U.S. national team on the able-bodied side: Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, individuals like that. You're taking the very best. So the transition from college, which I was having a lot of success. I mean, my last season, I probably averaged close to 40 a game scoring. Well, I wasn't even able to crack in to even get through the tryout for national team. I had to work on, getting bigger, getting stronger, working on my defense, working on a whole lot of areas, because what you realize very quickly at the international Paralympic level is everyone's great. Everyone's very, very good. And even more so, um, no one has basically any weaknesses. Everyone's really, really, really good at everything, but then they're exceptional. They're world class at one thing. And so it took me a long time and a lot of years to get good enough to just be able to crack into that team. And I was by no means even one of our best players for that 2014.
Of course, in 2007 and 10, what was that like going to the Pan American Games?
Oh, I didn't go in 7 and 10. Um, my Pan American experience was 2011, 2015, and 2009. So actually, after 2004, I was cut from the national team for those 6 straight years, and every single year. So I showed up in 05, cut 6, cut 7, cut 8, cut 9, cut 10, cut. So you think about 6 years, and I just wouldn't give up on my dream. I didn't want my only Paralympic experience to be in 2004, where we finished seventh. I still wanted to have the opportunity to wear the USA uniform, represent my nation, and win a gold medal. And so, in those years, in seven, what was I doing? I was working as hard as I could year after year, trying to get better every single day, so that eventually, when I showed up in 2011, I said to the national team coach, I said, I'm good enough now. I'm ready for this tryout. You're not going to cut me. That was my goal. I was to get good enough that eventually they couldn't cut me.
Of course, what was that feeling like the first time you made the Paralympic team and went to the Paralympics?
You're filled with pride. You're filled. It's a humbling experience. The Summer Paralympic Games is the second largest sporting event on earth. The only thing that is actually larger than it in terms of total athlete participation is the Summer Olympics. And the very first thing that you participate in is that opening ceremony. And to be out there and to see so many athletes from so many different countries, and this huge 100,000 person stadium, filled, and the fireworks and all the pageantry and pomp and circumstance, it just filled me with a great deal of pride to be able, again, to represent my country, but then humbled to even be so lucky to be able to be a part of it. But the thing for me is, I didn't feel lucky, because when I was there, I knew how hard I had worked. I genuinely felt like I had earned the right to be there.
Of course, making the London 2012 team, what was the training like preparing for London and going to London to compete?
The training's brutal, and it's a lot. So on a personal individual level, the training for me, my day would consist of about 5 hours of training on my own. That would be, waking up, and again, you're watching your diet. I was very careful about what I would eat. I was careful about how much I would sleep. I was careful about my supplementation. But I would go and spend the mornings putting up 1,000 shots. I would then go and lift for about an hour. I would then take a little bit of a break. I would then come back, put up more basketball, do some share skills work, maybe even play some if that was available to me. And then in the evening, I would do cardio, which would take me about an hour and a half. I would usually do 10 kilometers pushes in the evening. So it's brutal. And then when we're together, the training, when the team is together in like Colorado Springs or Lake Placid, a lot of times we're putting in 3 sessions a day. And if we're not doing 3, we're at least doing 2. So you're usually on the court in training environment, uh, you know, 7, 8 hours a day. I mean, we're doing 3 hour sessions in the morning and then 3 hour sessions in the afternoon, sometimes 3 in the evening. And then that along with video sessions and lift sessions, it's an absolute full-time job. And the training is brutal. You're so tired sometimes at the end of the day, you can't raise your arms.
Of course, while at London, after you competed, what was that like getting to visit the city of London and getting to tour it?
Amazing. One of the things that I loved the most about doing this sport was, so I studied history in college. And when I was first given the opportunity to play wheelchair basketball professionally, the reason why I did it, there's not a whole lot of money in this sport, but I thought, wow, I'm going to have the opportunity to play the sport that I love, but then also see some of these places that I had only, read about or seen in books. And that opportunity presented itself to me as well. Like you said, with London, London is a city that's gorgeous and it's filled with so much history. And I would say that top to bottom, the London Paralympics was the best Paralympic experience, not basketball experience, but as a whole Paralympic experience that I had. Um, it was every single game was full. Everywhere we went, we were in all the papers, on all the television. It was unbelievable the way that they supported it. I tell a story that they put up. A lot of people don't know this. They put up the two largest McDonald's. They're put up there just on a temporary basis, but they put them up because you have so many individuals that are needing food, and the two largest days for the Paralympics, or for in terms of sales from these McDonald's, were not Olympic days, they were Paralympic days. There were that many people. I mean, it was difficult even for my family and friends to be able to get tickets. So to be there in that environment, and again to be able to go to the Tower of London, to go to Buckingham Palace, to go to Parliament, as a person that has loved and studied history, it was incredible. I love London, and I always will. Always have a special place in my heart.
How is that like, obviously, having your family and friends travel with you to the Paralympics in London and even your other Paralympics in Rio?
It's it's one of the most important parts of doing it, which was kind of really what was sad with Tokyo. We got that taken away because we had nobody in the stands. Wheelchair basketball, we are truly an Olympic Paralympic sport, in that we're playing oftentimes in front of just family and friends, or maybe a few hundred people for our games. But then we go to the Paralympics and we're playing in venues like the O2 Arena, where there's 20, whatever it was, 24,000 people that we're playing in front of. Um, but for me, in being there, it wasn't just being there and participating and representing your nation. One of the things that was the most meaningful to me was being there with my family, with my wife, with my sister, with my mother and father, there watching it and experiencing it with me. It was outside of the actual basketball itself, because that's what you're there to do, and that's what you're there to train, is play with your brothers and to try to ultimately win a gold medal. But outside of that, as soon as the games were over, the most meaningful moments to me in being at the Paralympics were the moments where you could spend time with your family and friends that had traveled all that far and it had been so influential in your journey. Like my mom bringing me to these events and driving me all across the country and showing up and and for them to be able to experience that with you, that was really meaningful to me.
Of course, after London, what was that like preparing for Rio and making that Rio team?
The training for the Rio team was probably the most intense. We had changed coaches in after 2012, even though we had won a bronze medal, and we had brought in a new coaching staff, which was much more serious, much more business like, and the training ramped up a notch. We ended up getting personalized for our weightlifting, and it all became much more scientific and much more regimented. And so everything that we were doing just got ramped up, and the level of intensity for, so we were doing basically the same amount of time, like I explained to you, 5 hours of training a day on my own, 8 or 9 when we're together. But the level of intensity was much higher. I think all of us realized very, very quickly, after 2012 winning a bronze medal, and then in 2014 losing in the last minute to Australia and only winning a silver medal, uh, we all had gone in there very professional, like, of, this is serious. We are coming in here. We finally got the team. We've got the coaching staff. This is our moment. This is it. We are going to win the gold medal in Rio. And we believed it to a man. but again, we didn't just go out there and expect to win. We did the work, and all of us were in the best shape of our lives going into there, and the trainings were so incredible, and that it's level. I mean, you couldn't take a play off because you'd get embarrassed because everybody was that serious, every training, every moment, and that's why we had success.
Of course, at Rio, what was that feeling like when you did receive a medal and you knew that all of your hard work at that games paid off?
It was the was a, it was the most magical uh, and proudest and best moment of my athletic career and life, to finally get the gold medal after searching for that was like my holy grail. um, from the time that like I was basically 11 or 12 years old, if I'm going to represent the USA, I'm going to play in the Paralympics, and then getting to the Paralympics and failing, and then getting to the Paralympics and only winning a bronze, and then finally getting back there and winning, particularly with that group of guys and that group of friends, and the way that we did it. um, it was I mean, it was humbling, it was all inspiring, it was meaningful. The most proud moment was not when they put the gold medal around my neck, but was when seeing the stars and stripes, and seeing our flag get raised up and playing our national anthem. And then I was looking out in the crowd, and I could see my family there, and my wife was there, and my mom was there, and my sister. And it yeah, I was fighting back tears, and I was, as it was playing, I was just thinking of throughout the journey for me of all the obstacles and all the difficulties and being cut, and all the hard work and the thousands and thousands of hours that I had put into it to finally achieve that, and to finally win, the first gold medal for the USA since 1988, to go those 28 years, to finally be a part of that team, and then to do it in such a dominant fashion, to be basically the greatest team to ever do it in terms of margin of victory. It Yeah, it's probably my proudest moment of anything I've ever done or experienced in the athletic arena.
Of course, when you got to put that medal around your neck, what was that feeling like knowing that all of your hard work paid off and that you didn't just represent that team, but as you said, you represented other teams in the past?
Yeah, just a great amount of pride. It's the Olympics and Paralympics is different than any other sports in a variety of reasons. You're only getting it. Imagine the Super Bowl is only once every 4 years. Imagine how much more emphasis would be put on that, much like the World Cup. But it's bigger than that too, because it's beyond yourself. It's beyond your team. You're representing your nation, and so the pride that I had, not only for individually achieving what I had achieved, but to do it with that group of guys, that group that we had developed a true brotherhood, and then even one step more of to represent my city, my state, knowing that back home people were watching, and proud that a kid from Council Bluffs, Iowa was representing the USA on a stage. And then my family and my friends that had, helped me through my journey. And then ultimately to represent your nation, to be able to wear USA across your chest, and to be one of those 12 athletes, to be able to represent your nation. It just filled me with a great deal of pride.
What was that feeling like getting to put on that Team USA jersey and having the Argonaut symbols on it along with Team USA on it?
The very first time you're able to put on the USA uniform is it's the fulfillment of your dream. For me and for anyone that's involved in wheelchair basketball, there's no question that the pinnacle of our sport is the Paralympics, and to be able to represent your nation. And so it was something that I never took for granted, as many times as I was able to represent the USA. And I was fortunate. I got 4 Paralympic games. I did 3 Pan American games. I got 3 Pan gold medals. I was able to represent the USA in a World Championships games and win a silver medal. But I would always take a moment, honestly, before every single time that I would put that jersey on. And I would just take a minute and just kind of look at it, and just kind of think, wow, I can't believe I'm here, and I get to put on this uniform, and play with this incredible group of talented guys. It was it truly was grateful. It was never anything that that I took with expectation, and that, oh yeah, it was always something that was really meaningful to me. Of, wow, I can't believe I get to put this jersey on and represent my country. It was an amazing honor.
Of course, after the Rio Paralympics, what was the training like preparing for Tokyo and preparing to go to Tokyo?
Grueling. It was Tokyo was much more difficult for me on a personal level because I had already made the decision to call at the end of Tokyo was going to be the end of my career. I actually, at the end of Rio, I had basically decided that I had got my gold medal. That was what I had been striving for my whole life. I was good to not play with USA anymore. And I always took the next year off after the Paralympics because I was playing professionally. And to do year round basketball was very grueling physically and mentally. And so I took 17 off, and then in 2018 I ended up going to Australia and ended up getting married, and was basically doing a honeymoon. So I couldn't compete in 2018. So I thought my time with USA Basketball is done. I'm just going to play professionally, and then I'm going to transition into regular life. I got my gold medal, but in 2018, the team ended up losing in the World Championships to Great Britain. They lost by 20 in the final, and so the coach and the players said, they called me up and asked me if I would come back for the next 2 years, and I said that I would, but I said that I would only with the understanding that the very end of my basketball journey, the very last games I'm going to play were going to be the Tokyo 2020 games, and so that's what I did, and everything was on pace. And in 2019, I had a great tournament, maybe my best tournament in Lima for the Paralympian Games. I led the team in scoring. And in 2020, in the lead up, I was playing in Spain, which is the best league in the world, and I was All-Star 5, and I was leading the league in scoring. And then COVID comes, and so COVID shuts down all the leagues. It delays the Olympics by a full calendar year. And what it did for me personally was really, really challenging because I had no team to play with. I had to train on my own. I also had to work full time, regular full time job for the first time in my life, and I was finishing my master's degree. And so to balance the three things, training with no professional basketball and training by yourself, plus working a full time job while training for the Paralympics, and also finishing my master's degree, it was challenging, and particularly for me, affected me more so than even my other teammates because I knew I was on the backside. I was already 40 years old at that point, and Father Time is undefeated, and so it was very, very challenging to balance all of that and still put in the amount of training that I needed to completely on my own individually. It was very, very difficult, but it made it that much more meaningful when we were able to achieve what we did.
Of course, going to Tokyo and getting to compete there, what was that feeling like getting to put on that jersey, knowing that it was your last time versus getting to put it on all the three other times?
Yeah, that's a great question. Tokyo was different in that I knew it was going to be my finish line. And so for the very first time in my life, I allowed myself to kind of, let's say, stop and smell the roses and really, really drink in each experience, knowing it was going to be my last experience. I'd never allowed myself ever to do that in ever because I don't think it's good, for sports. I think it's important to stay in the moment and also not to look back. So I never ever put any of my medals up, or I always stayed. This is the next challenge. But for Tokyo, I did. So I really was drinking things in, and this is going to be my last opening ceremonies. This is going to be my last time with the guys in the locker room. These are going to be my last practices. These are going to be my last games, and making sure that I fully appreciated how lucky I was in what I was able to do and what I was able to accomplish. And Tokyo was like no other games either, in that we had the COVID restrictions. And so it was very odd to play in front of these massive, gigantic stadiums completely empty. I also didn't have my family or my friends there. No one was able to travel to Tokyo to be there. So some of that was took away from, because I just explained to you that half of the enjoyment, half of the experience is being there with your family and friends and being able to experience the country. We also, as you asked me, how was it to go into London and Tokyo? We weren't able to leave, so I didn't even get to experience the city and the culture like I would have liked to. So Tokyo was very, very unique, but thankfully, for me, it had the golden finish, which made it all worthwhile to win the gold medal, and for that to be my ultimate finish line in my last experience with basketball, um, meant the world to me.
Of course, after the Tokyo and after that game, what was that moment like when you did take a moment to still stay on the court and reflect on your career, knowing that all of your hard work paid off?
I did do that, and I did a couple of things intentionally. I also I had a flag with me, and I put it around my shoulders, which technically you're not supposed to do. Some people frown on that. I think it can be disrespectful to the flag, but it was meaningful to me because that was my grandfather was a World War II vet, and that was the flag that was used at his funeral. And I thought it was appropriate to finish my career and have that, and that's what I wrote at the end of my career: gold medal around my neck, USA across my chest, and the stars and stripes around my shoulders. It was the perfect finish line. And I did. I sat there. But what was the most meaningful was not just for myself. I was thinking about my career and my journey and the finish of the basketball, but to be there with my teammates, with that group of guys who still this day are some of my best friends and always will be. It just made it that much more meaningful. But I, I'm very fortunate because very few people get to choose their finish line, almost no one in sports. And for that to be, for me to be able to have my last game be at the very, very highest level, winning, wearing the USA jersey with the gold medal, it was the ultimate, it was the storybook finish.
What was that feeling like receiving your Paralympic rings and getting to put them on, knowing that all of your hard work paid off?
It's the same. It's just of enormous pride. It's of because it's a lot of work, and sports is so much different than any other endeavor. Like, you can have a goal in your life to be a great movie star, or to be a lawyer, or to be a doctor, and ultimately you can make a separation in your life between personal and work. You can do the job in your personal life. You can almost live your personal life how you want. Sports is one of those few things that, to be successful in that arena, it's all encompassing. It takes everything of you 24 hours a day. Every decision that you're making, from what you eat, how you sleep, what you do, how much you train, it all will directly impact you. So just knowing everything that I had put into it, because I had given all. I mean, that was the one thing that I was clear of starting in like 2010 and 11, is there was no other leaf to turn over. There was no other rock to, I had basically decided I'm going to look myself in the mirror and be able to say, this is as good as I can possibly be. There's nothing else I could have done to be any better. And I had done that. I had given basketball all my heart, my soul, my body, my energy. I had dedicated my whole entire life to it, into the pursuit of excellence, into the craft. And that's what I was thinking about as I was, receiving any sort of ring or medal, of just that level of dedication and sacrifice and hard work, and but then ultimately being able to achieve my dreams from the time I was a kid.
How does it feel to have Paralympian behind your last name and add PLY?
It's beautiful, and that, the Olympic and Paralympic is, they say there's no former Paralympic. So you'll hear that all the time: former basketball player, former pro athlete. There is no former. It's like, once we're an Olympian or Paralympian, we are always a Paralympian. And so that's something that no one can ever take away from me. It's something that, again, I recognize that I earned, and I earned with an enormous amount of discipline, dedication, and hard work. And I will always have, these forever, regardless of what happens or what anyone wants to say about me or my life. I will always be a two-time gold medalist, and that isn't going anywhere. And I'm very, very, very proud of that.
Of course, looking back on your career, how has that been like, as you said, being a two-time gold medalist and a four-time Paralympian?
It's more than I could have ever hoped for or imagined. Like I said, from the time I was just a little kid, My sole goal was, I thought best case scenario, look, maybe I'll be lucky enough that I'll be able to wear a USA uniform. And the highlight of all of my dreams would be to ultimately win a gold medal. And the fact that I was able to participate in 4 Paralympics, had this incredibly long career, won 2 gold medals, 3 Pan American game gold medals, to be able to have played professionally around the world for 17 years, to have been able to play wheelchair basketball on every continent on earth besides Antarctica, seen so many beautiful places, met so many people, gained so many friends along the way, got to play with so many amazing players. I'm forever grateful for having the opportunities.
What would you tell your younger self looking back on your career? What would you tell your younger self now?
Um, that there's going to be a lot of difficult moments. There's going to be a lot of adversity. There's going to be a lot of moments where it's going to be dark and you're going to want to quit. But continue to put in the hard work because it will ultimately be worth it.
What is that like, obviously getting to meet your fans and having them ask for your autographs and adding PLY behind it?
It means a lot to be able to engage with people. As I mentioned before, the Olympic and Paralympic movement is larger than sports because it's more meaningful. You're representing your nation, and along with that, the goal is to inspire, and it's to inspire your country, like you're seeing, with what recently has happened with the World Cup. That's going to inspire. That's going to actually move the nation of Argentina along. It can bring a country together. It's a beautiful experience, but along with that is inspiring this next generation. So whether it's able-bodied children or certainly disabled children, to inspire them to say, you can achieve great things, you can go on to do great things. It's really, really meaningful to me.
What has it been like, obviously getting to play with some of your teammates like Steve, Brian Bell, Ryan, and even Jake?
It's humbling. I mean, I'm honored to call those guys my friends and my teammates. Uh, you know, in this sport that we participate in, it's not an individual sport; it's a team sport. And so, regardless of how good one individual player is, you won't have success. It takes all 12, and to be able to share the court with those guys, it was amazing that we all had our strengths and we all had our abilities and our talent, but it was very cool to be out there. And whether it was in a game or just in a training session, there never was a single time when I was with that group that there wasn't at least 1 or 2 moments where I would see something or see someone do something and just be blown away and say, wow, I can't believe how good that guy is, or I can't believe that move, I can't believe that shot. So again, just a lot of gratitude to have been able to be a part of that and have the longevity that I had, and to be able to play with so many amazing players, because they were, anybody that was on that 2016 team or that 2020 team knows how hard we worked, knows how deep that brotherhood was, and yeah, I'm grateful to be able to play with those guys.
Throughout your career, what has it been like getting to play in that Canada versus US rivalry game?
The Canada USA rivalry game has always been a fun one. It wasn't always as fun at the beginning. It's interesting because when I first was, my first team, 2004, was probably Canada at the absolute zenith. They certainly were the most dominant team. I mean, they won the gold medal in 2000 and 2004, nearly won it in 2008, and then won it again in 2012. We weren't. I remember the first time I ever played against Canada was at something called the Roosevelt Cup on the lead up to 2004, and they beat us by more than 50 points. And so we certainly took our lickings on the front side, and then to finally achieve, basically by 2012, we had caught them, and I honestly think had we played Canada in the semifinals opposed to Australia, I think we would have beaten them. We played them 3 times in the lead up to 2012, and we beat them two of the three times in Canada, and almost caught them the third time. It was really close. Um, but then post 2012, it was very clear that we were the better team, and I think that a lot of us that were, like Matt and myself and Steve, that had been along for the ride from the beginning, we took great pleasure in really, really dominating and beating the crap out of them by as many points as we possibly could, to give them back some of what we had dealt with on the front side of things. So I loved playing against them, and certainly Pat Anderson, especially when he was involved and playing against him. We're the same age, and had come up together in juniors in college, and he certainly is one of the greatest to ever do it. But those matchups were always meaningful. But I'm very, very happy that at the end of my career, certainly from 2012 on, I never lost to Canada, and I'm very happy to have given them a lot of whippings on the backside of things.
Who are some influential people in your career that have shaped you into the basketball player that you are today?
There's a lot. Um, there's always a handful of people that have like huge influence in your life, and that would have been like my first junior coach, Mike Colt, who exposed it to me. My collegiate coach, Dale Erickson, he meant a lot to me. I also was fortunate to get to play with some really, really great players. And at the beginning, I know like Brad Ness, who was a Paralympian out of Australia. He kind of took me under his wing when I was just brand new to professional basketball in Italy. Uh, he meant a lot. And then some of the guys within wheelchair basketball, even though we're playing same time, like Steve and Matt. I mean, just even though they're friends and teammates, they really inspired me. And then even as a kid, getting to see Michael Jordan play, or like my very, very first earliest memory of seeing basketball as a little kid was like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. All of this inspired me and pushed me along.
Of course, at the Paralympics, what was that feeling like getting to play on that same court that the legends from the Olympics teams played on, like Michael Jordan and
Yeah,
Kobe?
it's incredible. I it would always take me a few moments the very first time that we would step on the Olympic Paralympic court, because we're playing in the exact same venues as the Dream Team, and uh, and we're playing in such beautiful, huge arenas. They hold 20,000 people, which for us as wheelchair basketball players, that's the only time we ever get to experience that, is at the Olympics and Paralympics. And so it would always take me a few minutes of just going in there. I wouldn't even, we'd roll on the floor and we could immediately start shoot. I never would. I would always roll in there, and I would always just kind of look around and take a few moments to take it in, of like, almost like, oh mama, we made it. Like, this is it. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm wearing this USA uniform in this arena playing in the Paralympics. It's awe inspiring. It truly is, and I'm incredibly grateful to have had that opportunity in four different Paralympics.
Of course, what was that feeling like for you that you said, "Oh, mama, I made it"?
What was that feeling like? Just, you're filled with pride, and you're humbled to be able to be recognized as it is. It's an honor to be able to be in any Paralympic sport, but certainly in wheelchair basketball, with the depth and the talent involved, just to be able to be one of the 12 best players, and again to wear that same uniform as the Dream Team is some of my heroes, to have USA across the chest and know that you're representing an entire nation. Uh, that's how I felt. I was honored. I was honored to be there.
Of course, competing at the Paralympics, what was it like going down the court in your wheelchair basketball wheelchair?
In some ways, it's no different than being in practice, and that's kind of the goal. Actually, is you do something so many times that once you're out there on the floor, it just feels like being in any other gym. But it's never lost on you either that of of the magnitude of it. Again, it's like having the Super Bowl once every 4 years. And so much of your story and your legacy is going to be based on these handful of games that you're going to be competing in. And so it's kind of it's a bit of a mental struggle to at one point just say to yourself, hey, this is just like any other game. This is just like any other time where you're out there on the floor, just shoot the same shots, do it. But at the same time, also in the back of your head, you're recognizing, wow, there's thousands or millions of people watching around the world. There's 20,000 people in here watching us. This is the greatest stage, the pinnacle of my sport. This is what I have trained my whole entire life for. This has been my goal since the time that I was a little kid. Uh, Certainly in my athletic arena, so much of my legacy and story is going to be based on what happens in these handful of moments here. So it's interesting in that of that it's as much as you're trying to downplay it, it's always there and present of wow, look where I am, look what we're doing.
What was the feeling like getting to live out your Paralympic dream and making 4 Paralympics?
It's the same. It's I'm just I'm very grateful and I'm honored that I had the opportunity for myself, for my family, for my friends, for my city, for my state, and to represent the USA. The thing that I might be most proud of is the fact that us as a basketball nation, a very proud basketball nation, we had gone from 1988 all the way till 2016 without winning a gold medal, 28 years, and to be a part of the team to win that, to break that streak, 28-year streak, and finally win a gold medal. But then not only just win one, but to win back-to-back gold medals with that same group of guys and that same brotherhood. That's the thing that I'm the most proud of, and I will forever be proud of. Is that's not going away. Much like the PLY behind my name, no one can ever take away the fact that I got to participate in 4 Paralympic Games, but to actually win those gold medals, and that's forever in the books. That brings me a great amount of pride.
How's the transition been like from going from competing in wheelchair basketball to retiring and life outside of wheelchair basketball?
Um, Oftentimes, that can be one of the most difficult moments in a person's life. But for me, as I had mentioned to you before with my story, I had already fully carved out that Tokyo 2020. I wanted that to be my last memory of basketball. I wanted that to be my finish line. So often in sports, we don't get to choose our finish line. The finish line is chosen for us by we're either being told we're not good enough anymore, or we're too old. And a great amount of people, the last time they get a chance to play organized sports is at high school. Then some get to get the honor playing in college, but then they don't get to play professionally. I was able to live out my dreams to play in 4 Paralympics, to play 17 years professionally, and ultimately got to choose my finish line myself to say, I'm going to finish at the very, very top level, wearing USA across my chest. I got to choose my finish line, and ultimately I got the gold, like literally the dream movie finish of finishing with a gold medal. That was my last game I will ever participate in. And so the transition has not been difficult for me. I don't miss it. I got way more than I ever dreamed I ever would out of it. 4 Paralympics, 2 gold medals. It's incredible. And the other thing that also drove me was I never wanted basketball to be the only thing great that I accomplished. I wanted there to always be this successful part B of my life post basketball. And so I didn't want to delay the finish of my basketball so much that I couldn't have a successful part B.
What advice would you give those future college basketball players that are looking to play adaptive sports in college?
Regardless of what level they're wanting to do, I would say be singular minded and focused. There's not enough time in your life or in a given day to be great at many things. So if you want to be truly great at something, it's going to take 100% of your focus. So put everything you've got into it. Work incredibly hard, give it your all, leave yourself with no regrets. Know that there was nothing left that you could have done. Focus on your diet, focus on your training, focus on going to the gym, on your cardio. Sports takes everything, but put in the hard work. And if you do put in the hard work, inevitably the results will come. That will not guarantee you that you'll be able to play for the Paralympics, but you will know that you got everything out of this vehicle, out of this body that you could, and you will be the very best player that you can be. And there's something very satisfying about that.
What
Knowing that
advice
you're all.
what advice would you give those first-time Paralympians and multiple-time Paralympians?
To any Paralympian, I would just say, enjoy the experience. If you're participating at a Paralympic level, you've already done the work to get there. So you're already at the pinnacle of your sport. But I would just say, if for anyone going to the next Paralympic Games, give yourself to fully appreciate what you have done and accomplished, and enjoy those moments, cherish those moments, because they're so few and far between, and enjoy the time off the court with your teammates, with your fellow Paralympians. Get to talk to some other people from some other countries. You'll never be in another situation like that again, where you're surrounded by so many unique individuals from so many different sports and so many different countries, and spend the time with your teammates if you're lucky enough to be in a team sport. But really embrace and appreciate that time that you have there, because it's honestly, it's an honor just to be a part of one Paralympic Games.
What advice would you give those Olympians and Paralympians that are transitioning from being an athlete to retiring and outside of the sport?
I would say that even though it can appear that it's daunting to transfer from sports into the public or private sector, I would say to go to downplay those fears, because the exact same skill set that allowed you to become great in sports is immediately transferable to the public world, to the outside world, to regular day life. That same amount of discipline and dedication and hard work, everything that allowed you to be great in sports, is immediately, and I mean immediately, transfer over to having success in whatever you decide to do. And I'm living proof of that. If you want to use me as inspiration on the sports side of things, you can use me in inspiration in this other field. And now I've got a master's degree. I was, working for New Motion, and passed a very, very difficult test, which is for ATP. I did that, and now I recently have been elected and am a representative for my country, the very first one to have a permanent disability, to be a representative for the House of State of Iowa. And that was not easy. I knocked 13,000 doors crawling up there with my chair. I outperformed the top of the ticket by 14 points. I only won my election by 6 votes, but I went out there and I earned it. And so you can have success post basketball, regardless of what you decide to do, because you understand what true hard work is. And so that's what I would say. Throw the same approach that you had with whatever sport that you did, put that same amount of hard work into post your sports world, and you will be successful. I'm certain of that.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
On social media, I'm on Instagram. It is Josh Turek 04. They can also, I have a website. It's Turek, the number 4. So TurekForIowa.com. That's my political website. And I also have a Facebook page that is Turek for Iowa as well.
Thank you again, Josh Turek, for your interview, and best of luck in your future wherever it may hold you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the time. It was an honor to be here.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Joshua Turek, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.